All right, we are live for another Monday. Thank you so much for joining us today. Uh, I am stupefied, I think is the only way to say it. So Donald Trump came out in his press conference to discuss the vaccine issue. He lied. He told very dangerous false information. And as just someone who cares about science, someone with a young daughter, I think he did this country such a disservice today. I am almost speechless. But we have a lot of information for you. I want to talk about why what he said was misinformation. I think each of us maybe have an opportunity to dispel some of these lies. And I think it's just more of the same. The theme when it comes to this administration is that Donald Trump is just going to repeatedly lie to the American people. He lied about the Epstein files. He lies about his economy. He lies about vaccines, and he literally lies about everything. So let me just say hi. I'm Joe from Call to Activism. This is Cosima.
Hello.
Call to Activism. Cosima, I'll let you talk. I already did too much talking.
No, it's okay.
How do you feel today after seeing Donald Trump's
It's
press
just
conference?
honestly, it's just a lot to digest. I don't think there's any scientific data to back up anything he's saying.
Nothing.
And I think it's really scary. And I think the bigger question is who is financially benefiting from him talking about Tylenol and just making it more of an argument that it causes autism.
I think that's a great point. We just spent an entire news cycle talking about how inappropriate it is for Donald Trump's FCC to weigh in on corporate decisions, right? And that was something that traditionally was bipartisan.
Yeah.
Republicans and Democrats didn't want the government stepping in, telling the FCC, excuse me, for the FCC to go tell a private corporation, you better fire this person or else, which is
Yeah.
basically what Brendan Carr told ABC when it came to Jimmy Kimmel. Here we have a president of the United States going on a live press conference telling Americans don't take Tylenol. It is unconscionable for a president to tell the American people not to take a product from an American company based on false pretenses.
But here, I don't know if you even heard this. So autism was first diagnosed in 1943 and then updated in 1944. Tylenol did not hit the market until 1955. So if his argument is that Tylenol is causing autism, what is the explanation for autism being diagnosed 10 years prior to it even hitting the shelves?
Yeah, they have no answer to that. They have no answer because there is no scientific basis that any vaccine causes autism. And saying that sounds controversial because of the myths that are perpetuated and the misinformation that's perpetuated. It has been explained to us. We have asked doctors, we've asked scientists. This is something that we've been following really since COVID days.
Yeah.
We wanted to know answers for ourselves. We have a big platform. We don't want to spread misinformation ourselves. And as we were explained, there is no mechanism for a vaccine to give someone autism. Why? Because it would literally require the complete rewiring of the brain.
Yeah.
And there is nothing biologically possible. There's nothing that makes that biologically possible through the mechanism of being injected with a vaccine.
Right.
So I'm getting flagged. I'm really excited to say that we could actually see your questions. So we're going to be posting a link right now to where we are on Substack on the Siren Network. And that is going to give you guys an opportunity to ask us questions. Some people have already started, which I'm excited to see. But anyway, if you would like to tell me more about why you thought today was ridiculous, it'll give me a moment to post our link underneath this underneath this post.
You know, honestly, it's just everything that comes out of this administration has no scientific data to prove anything that they're saying. You know, when Donald Trump was at his press conference, he didn't even take questions after it was over, other than talking about why we shouldn't be taking Tylenol as children. You know, he specifically said, don't give it to your children. I encourage everybody listening to please talk to your pediatricians or doctors if you do have children and find out exactly what they have to say about Tylenol for your child. Donald Trump is not a doctor. He does not have any medical background. RFK Jr. does not have medical background or a degree in medicine. So you should really be seeking out information from your own doctors and getting advice from them rather than listening to what's coming out of this administration.
Or even us, right? But I
We're
will
not
say,
doctors. We're not
I
doctors.
do want to say, because I would be remiss, the specific lie that he said today. He said that 80 vaccines are given to babies. That alone,
That's not true.
that alone is not true.
That's not true.
There are about 14 vaccines that I know of up until about 6 years old that are given to
But you
children.
know what? Here's the thing. I'm sure so many parents are watching right now with small children or grandchildren for that matter. And they know that their children or grandchildren are not getting 80 vaccines, right?
He literally said
That-
pumped into a baby, like the same vaccines that would be given a horse. He said on
the size
size
of
of
the
it.
vaccines.
It's not 80 vaccines. What happens is there's about 14 vaccines that doctors have split into doses. The whole point is to give them small doses spread over a period of time.
Yep.
From newborn basically to 6 years old. And that is why there are so many doses, because it is safer to give the baby these vaccines split up as they do. And the CDC has created this schedule. And Donald Trump is claiming that there's 80 vaccines. And then he says at the end, I think you should split them up in smaller doses.
They are split.
They are split up. That is why there are so many shots. It's because.
And look, he's going to take credit now. He's going to say, well, you know what? They're split up now. And he's going to take credit and say, well, look what I did. Now everything is split up. They're already split up.
Exactly. A couple of things to note. He said that Cuba was a great country to look at for why Tylenol causes autism, because Cuba didn't have Tylenol for many years because they couldn't afford it, was what he said, and they don't have autism there. Well, news flash, right? Dictatorships don't often diagnose autism. You know, they don't have the medical means to do that. And so that was like the dumbest thing that I heard him say, aside from some of the other things. One of them was that he said, we have a lot of stupid people in this country running things. That was the first thing I ever agreed with Donald Trump about. He is at the top of the stupid chart. You know, it's just too ridiculous for words. There is data that Robert F. Kennedy literally traveled to countries to talk about the vaccine and give his wild conspiracy theories, and kids died. There was vaccine hesitancy. He is one of the leading causes of vaccine hesitancy in this country. And I think he's putting our country back decades. There were studies that have come out of Germany. There are biotechnical firms working right now on vaccines for certain types of cancer. And this administration is not only hostile to vaccines, they're hostile to science, they're hostile to data. And the only thing that's going to come from this is that people are going to die. Measles is on an uptick. Places like Utah have a complete it's very, very prevalent in college campuses. And you think of measles like, oh, it's just a rash. It's not just a rash. It can turn into very, very high fevers. It could lead to brain damage. It could lead to pneumonia. People will die as these diseases come back after being eradicated. It is such a tragedy. It is so silly. I don't know how anyone could trust Donald Trump with medical information after what happened with COVID, and how many people died on his watch because he didn't want to. He has to stop the counting. He dragged his feet trying to tell us that it didn't exist until way too late. any Democratic president in charge would have had a plan immediately. They would have probably shut down travel
There was a
immediately.
plan.
There was
a
that.
plan. Obama left him a plan on how to handle a pandemic, and he is so jealous of the man that he couldn't even read the proposal that was left on exactly how to handle the problem and how many millions of people died because he was too proud to take advice from the man that he will never live up to.
100%. And exactly. This is just another example of that same stupid headed thinking. And I wanted to focus on something you said, which I thought was brilliant. When you talked about follow the money, basically.
Right.
A president of the United States is coming out on live TV saying, don't take Tylenol. Tylenol has a parent company.
But wait. He said this during a very sensitive time. He said that yesterday.
On the plane.
He said that on the plane, but he also announced it during a funeral service, right? During a very sensitive time. And it started the dialogue in that moment, right? And you have to wonder why it was brought up during that time. Like, did he need enough time to see what was going to happen with the stock market? To see if it would plummet based on what he said? And then based on what he said, the new information that he broadcasted today would increase the stock market. Would people make money? Would it go down? Like, I don't trust the timing of anything he says or when he says it.
It's a fair question because you can bet against companies, right? You can say, oh, I think they're going to go down. I think that this is cause for an investigation because if there are people who, it's called shorting, if there are people who shorted, I don't even want to say Tylenol's parent company. You may think you know, but there was the company split a little while ago. I'm not even name it. Obviously, you could Google it, but I don't want to cause stock issues, right? Unlike the president. But if there were people who shorted this stock last week before this was mentioned, and they're prominent and they have connections to Donald Trump, I think they should be investigated. I think the Senate should look into who shorted this stock because it is prime opportunity for insider trading. If they knew Donald Trump was going to go on live TV and say, don't take Tylenol, anyone who shorted that stock has now just made tons of money. It's beyond ridiculous. And we just see this kind of stuff all the time where he says, I'm going to do tariffs. And then he says he undoes the tariffs and people make money because they're betting on the market in between. It's just two rough words. We're getting some questions right now about the Tom Homan scandal. I don't want to ignore that. I appreciate your patience. So somebody's asking for our thoughts on the $50,000 scandal and how Trump may have shut down the investigation. This is an MO of Donald Trump. We know that he goes after his opponents and we know that he protects his allies. I've seen it again and again. I can give you a million examples. So yeah, I think it fits, right? I wasn't in the room, but I think Donald Trump likely shut down this investigation. And today, Caroline Leavitt lied. She said that Tom Homan did not accept the money. And from what we understand and the reporting was that he's actually caught on tape accepting a $50,000 bribe from someone who turned out to be a federal agent. Undercover agent. And this was under the Biden administration. I think, unfortunately, because they're going to just lie and say that had anything to do with it. If the guy accepted a bribe, he accepted a bribe. And if he's recorded doing it, he's recorded doing it.
I would love to know the serial numbers on all the cash that he accepted and find out if it was deposited somewhere or if it was spent somewhere.
Brilliant. You're asking great questions.
We'll never know. But maybe we will know.
Absolutely.
Maybe somebody has the information. Maybe it'll come out.
Absolutely.
Who knows?
And it's sad because we probably know about this story because some prosecutor with integrity in the Department of Justice leaked the story to the press because they're horrified that Donald Trump squashed this investigation and would have gotten away with it had we not heard about it. I'll call attention. We've heard this before. This is like the same old story. Ryan Crosswell, who's running for Congress in Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. He was a DOJ attorney who said that Emil Bove basically muscled DOJ attorneys to drop the investigation in the case against Eric Adams, because at the time, Donald Trump was schmoozing it up with Eric Adams and they had a friendship, and Donald Trump, I'm sure, was getting something out of it. And basically the order came down that you have to drop this, and if you play, nice and you do the right thing, you'll be promoted, and if you don't, you'll be fired. Sounds like an episode of The Sopranos. And we know that happened because there were very, very brave whistleblowers who came out and testified under oath in front of Congress. And this is the same shit, pardon my language, that we've always seen with him. So my feeling is that, yeah, he squashed this because Tom Homan is his friend. I loved what AOC said when she wrote "Who is illegal now." And I think it's tragic that we Democrats are not in charge of the Department of Justice. So we're gonna have to wait this out. It doesn't mean that we should have short memories. I think we should be documenting all of this. And I think when they're out, and I don't care how many years later, we have to just stick to the rule of law and make sure that people are held accountable. And there's going to be a lot of these situations, and blessed are the whistleblowers, and we need to make sure that they're protected under the law, and because it also will encourage more people to come out, which I think is also important. So thank you to whoever leaked that story, because we wouldn't have known about this. And this guy who is self-righteous, going after undocumented people, workers, families, people with children in schools. These are not the people. They are benefiting society. They are going after them because cruelty is the point, and it's great on television for people who want to see cruelty. And meanwhile, the guy is corrupt and he's accepting bribes for future Trump contracts. It's disgusting, and I hope he's held accountable.
I hope so too. It's tragic. I think we're getting more questions coming in.
The next question we got here, I'll let you take that one.
All right, so we want to talk about Jimmy Kimmel and the situation with him coming back. Yeah, I think there's a lot to say. I mean, it's been a really long week with Jimmy Kimmel not being on air. I think it was a lot going on, with Charlie Kirk, and it was just emotions were high. It was a very sensitive time, but at the same time, I think we have to have a conversation about free speech, right? So really, the definition of free speech is the fundamental right to express opinions, ideas, and beliefs without government interference, censorship, or retaliation, right? And I think, watching Jimmy Kimmel and what happened throughout this week, I think he kind of made a point, and he's back. He's back, and they made a deal.
Absolutely. I'm overjoyed that he's back.
I'm thrilled he's back.
I'm a big fan of Jimmy Kimmel. I'm a big fan of his commentary. I'm a big fan of the First Amendment, and all of those intersected. I'm glad that he's back. I will say that there is some fear among people on our side that he's going to tone it down, right? Because that was the word on the street, was that ABC had said, we'll give him a show back if he could tone it down. And there were some people that were tied to ABC they didn't think it was possible, right? Because they were like, how could he tone it down? If that's his entire identity, that he stands up to Trump and he has a voice, how is he going to turn it down? Is that fair to him? Will he want to be in that situation? So now the question is, will he? What he's going to say on his first episode? There's an argument that what he said when he said that the shooter was MAGA wasn't true, based on the fact that this person was unaffiliated and maybe didn't fit quite in the political mold that even though Donald Trump ran with, to try to make it sound like he was this left-leaning person, where it looks like he didn't mention Trump in his socials. He wasn't quite a person that you would think of on a political level, that he had his horrible motives and did what he did as a tragedy, and it's awful. But I don't think anybody was particularly right about this guy's motives shortly after it happened. And that's one thing. If he wants to clear the air and say, hey, I said this thing and it wasn't true. But I'm going to say, Jimmy Kimmel, if you're listening, we don't want you to tone it down. We don't want you to tone down your critique of Donald Trump. We don't want you to tone down your humor. We don't want to tone down all the things that we love about you.
It's your right.
It's his right to do so. And I think he should only accept to come back, frankly, if he could speak freely, in the sense that we, in the same standards that we hold everyone, right? Like, yeah, we don't want anyone to lie on TV.
We don't want to hear Donald Trump. We don't want to hear Stephen Miller all the time, but we do, because it's their right. right? That's free speech.
Absolutely.
I wish we didn't have to, but you know, at the same time, it's their right to do it, and I think it's a two-way street.
Absolutely. We did get another question. Will Kimmel's reinstatement lead to other companies standing up to Trump? I want to highlight why I think ABC gave him his job back. Well, first and foremost, because if Jimmy Kimmel must have had really great attorneys, I think that it's possible that, this was like a really good opportunity for him to sue them, into the ground.
It was like a sure win for him, I think.
But with that said, look at all the thousands and millions of people who responded and canceled their Disney and Hulu memberships and canceled their cruise reservations and canceled their park tickets and refused to spend money on Disney's properties. Millions of dollars a day had been reportedly were Disney had to pay. No, excuse me, they were losing.
They were losing a lot
because of people's actions. So I think this is really important. This is a message that activism works. It's a message that at the end of the day, the president doesn't control how much money Disney is going to make. We put money into Disney. We put food on everyone's table in Disney because we're the consumers. And if we stand up and we use our voice, I think this is a perfect example of activism. It's what call to activism originally was all about. And it's a good example of why we need to keep using our voice and our wallets to promote things. Like we shouldn't stand for when a company has advertisers that are harmful. We should speak up, and that's our right to use our voice. So I think that's a good sign. And I think this is a great question. I think that this will show other companies that there's life after Trump and that they shouldn't just capitulate, because if they that they're going to have to deal with consumers. And I think this is a really good example to lead, and I hope that it continues, because this was like 2 for 2. We already lost Colbert because of these dirty deals, as Eric Swalwell calls them. The fact that some of these big media conglomerates are trying to bend the rules so that they can merge. And it's like the perfect opportunity to curry favor with Donald Trump so that they get the sign off on these things. And it's just gross. And if they're doing that and they're going to fire people that are esteemed and important to society, then I think we should speak up and do everything we can to let them know we're not okay with it.
And what are you thinking about all the Republicans who are also standing up for the issue right now? Like we have Rand Paul, Tucker Carlson, we have Ted Cruz even speaking up. Like I think they know, if certain things are passed, it's going to come back and bite them in the ass.
Yeah, it's a very strange week. I agreed with Donald Trump that stupid people are running the country, so I had to agree with him once, which is horrible.
I think that's the first time we've ever agreed with Donald Trump.
Exactly.
But there are stupid people running.
No, I also agreed with him when he said smart people don't like me, and I also agreed with him when he said that he loves the poorly educated. But yeah, I had to agree with Rand Paul, Tucker Carlson, and Ted Cruz this week. Like I'm gonna have to take a shower. But yeah, basically, all three of those people said that this is creating precedent, because now Republicans are in power. Now you have a Republican strongman, Donald Trump, in office. But then what happens when Democrats are in office? What's good for the geese is good for the gander, or what's good for the goose is good for the gander. That means a Democratic president could start saying, hey, you know what? We're going to target Fox News and strip them of their broadcasting license for telling election lies, which I wouldn't have cried had that happened. But yeah, it's basically means that once you pull that off and you make it the precedent, then it could happen to you too. I think personally, we're better as a country by not having censorship and making sure that the government sure as hell isn't overstepping and telling private companies to fire people that because the president disagrees with their ideas or their comedy. I think we should all draw that line, and this should not be a partisan issue. It should be a bipartisan issue. Nobody should want that. I did get a question about what's up with MAGA talking about the rapture. Yeah, there's a sizable population. I don't know how many, but there is a thinking that the world is going to end soon. And at this rate, with Donald Trump leading us, it sounds like they're right. No, I'm kidding. It's just, but what I think is that yeah, I think that it does. It's in people's minds, and Mike Pence was an ascriber to this belief. I believe that the end of times were nigh, and it's not great to have leaders of our country who are sort of like hoping that the end of the world is right around the corner because it validates their religious beliefs. Um, I think that there is a reason our founders pushed separation of church and state, and I think that one of the biggest misconceptions about the freedom of religion in this country is that freedom of religion doesn't mean freedom to push religion and have a government religion. Freedom of religion also comes with a freedom from religion. And I think that when you start boiling your policies in a secular government with your religion, it just makes it harder to debate policy because it just amps up the emotion that much more. So I think we should try to stick to policy the way that traditionally we did. Try to get back to the way things were after Trump, where we could talk about, do we put Social Security in a lockbox or do we give it out as a stimulus? I miss those days. Those days weren't, should we recognize trans individuals or should we strip them of their jobs in the military and also remove their benefits that they earned while they were in the military for 20 years?
Which is complete bullshit, by
Right.
the way.
This administration is basically their entire platform is harming marginalized people or not. Right. And so it's like that's now where we are. Do we just let them hurt marginalized people publicly and for sport? Or do we stand up to that and say, no, that's bullshit? Like, that's wrong. ICE running into a company and throwing people on the ground who are members of society, who are contributing, who are workers, who are not criminals. Can't we figure out a way to handle this situation rather than that? And
I think
so,
there were other options.
so when
It didn't have to be rushed. It was very rushed and extreme, and at times it just felt like Donald Trump, wasn't conscientious enough to make that decision himself. And you actually have to ask yourself who was making those decisions on his behalf in there.
agreed with you. And yeah, so I mean, I think that's like the issue that I take biggest interest in is how do we move past this particular time in politics? I get it all the time from even Republican friends who say, can't we just talk about policy? It's like, how do we talk about policy if you are trying to harm people's lives, right? It's not anymore about do we build this road or do we not? Do we fund the space program or do we put the money elsewhere? This is like, do we end programs that will kill people, right? Like, or end programs that will lead to people dying, right? 17 million people lost
Which
their health.
they did. I mean, even USAID for that matter. I mean, people are dying. Like, people are starving. They don't have medication. They don't have the life-saving measures they need to survive. And those were services that were paid for. And just not to go totally off topic, but with USAID, I think a huge waste of money and time and effort that was executed by this administration is that food was already paid for, already sent out, already in warehouses, ready to be distributed to hungry people, right? And because USAID was cut, none of that food was able to be distributed and it rotted because it expired. There was nobody there to hand it out. And that is a complete loss. It's a waste of money because the food was already produced, manufactured, and ready to be distributed, and there was nobody there to hand it out. It just went bad and they burned it. Like, what purpose does that serve? That's a waste of our tax dollars, really.
I already saw a study. There's some preliminary studies going on. There's a statistician that started tracking how many people probably died because of the cancellation of USAID. And I think by the time this administration is over, we're going to find out that hundreds of thousands of people died, whether it be through disease or poverty,
right? And
or
it's just
not eating.
right, not eating, and that food was already paid for in there. And I think that's the killer, right? It was already there and shipped out, and that just goes back to the farmers, right? A lot of the contracts they had in the United States was for USAID contracts. So the food that they were manufacturing in those factories was
It came from American
it
farmers.
came from American farmers, and now they're not able to produce all that food that's literally going to waste right now. And we watched the concert this weekend, right? farm aid that raised so much money for these farmers who are losing money because of all the contracts that have been canceled, right? But that is directly related to this administration who cut off the funding. And now they're relying on concerts to get money back. I mean, it's complete bullshit. Like, they don't have money. The United States is losing and people are dying from contracts that they had. So who wins? Who wins at the end of the day?
No one wins. And especially, and I hate to say it, how many farmers voted for Donald Trump twice? And the first time that he wrecked their soybean market, destroyed it, they got a farmer's bailout package. President Biden was actually very, very good to farmers. He did not get any credit, but he actually gave them some loan forgiveness. He gave them billions of dollars in aid as well because of COVID and issues that didn't relate to Donald Trump only. And now Donald Trump is here. He destroyed the soybean market again. China has ordered 75% less soybeans, which was what a giant market for soybean farmers. They are hurting right now. And now Republicans are talking about another farmer stimulus to outdo to counteract all of the tariffs that destroyed farming. It's just too ridiculous for words. Which brings me to the last question. Somebody said, "Do you think this is all to distract from the Epstein files?" Please, we can't stop talking about the Epstein files. I agree with you. We did hear from
100%.
we raise it a lot on our platforms. We spoke with both of us spoke to Congressman Ro Khanna last week, and we discussed this issue with him, and he explained that there are some serendipitous things that have happened since the last time we heard about the discharge petition, which is in Congress, if enough people sign a document demanding a vote, they can overrule the Speaker of the House's decision not to bring it to a vote. And it's seldom used in this very, very partisan world. But there happened to be just almost enough Republicans to get it through with Thomas Massie, Nancy Mace, Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Lauren Boebert. And we needed two more votes originally, two more votes. And everyone in the Republican caucus wouldn't budge. But then what happened? We have two Democrats coming in that are replacing congresspeople. So the first congressperson who passed away had been replaced. Rep. Wilkinson had won that election in a landslide, I might add, and him coming in gave us that one extra vote. Now we need one vote. And tomorrow, if you're watching, there's going to be an election tomorrow for Congressman Grijalva's seat. There was a congressman who also passed away, and his daughter is running for his seat. And Nate Silver classifies that seat as a Democratic safe district. And so everyone is expecting Congressman Grijalva's daughter to win this election tomorrow, and she will be the final vote needed for the discharge petition. Now, the question is, will the Republicans who signed the discharge petition vote to release the Epstein files? I think so. I have high hopes. Congressman Ro Khanna said that he was very hopeful that the discharge petition would have a signature as early as tomorrow night. That would force procedurally a vote 1 week later. So sometime in early October, there will be a vote for the Epstein files, and we just got to scream loud as hell. We did not forget in the hopes that it passes, because what the hell are they hiding? I mean, it's so ridiculous at this point.
You think that both parties would want transparency? Like, who would want to hide predators?
I don't know. But voting against the Epstein file release should be a stain on whoever votes against it. That should be a campaign ad in every state for every representative that votes against it, because this is a slam dunk politically. Republicans want to see that list. Trump supporters want to see that list. Right-leaning influencers want to see that list.
Even Charlie Kirk wanted
to see the list. Donald Trump should release the list. And if he doesn't release the list, then Congress should force him. And it looks like that's going to happen if everything goes to plan. Tomorrow, we'll be watching that election. We'll report on it. But it should be very interesting.
Yeah.
And there should be a vote in early October. And I want to give some hope that we don't have to rely on the Trump government, because some very, very brave survivors have already said that they are watching intently. And if Congress and the Trump administration does not release their list, they're going to release their own list. And they are so brave and so wonderful. and so awesome to come forward. And it's tragic to me that all they wanted was just a little time with Kash Patel and Donald Trump and Pam Bondi. And so far, every single person in the Trump administration has slammed the door in their face and said that they will not meet with the Epstein survivors. Shame on every single one of them. But I thank the survivors, and I think that they have a right to come out if they want to. Um, and that would be a way to get the list if they want to make.
And it's not too late. If anybody in the administration wants to open the door to these survivors, I'm sure these survivors would absolutely love the chance to speak to them.
Absolutely. And I will say, I said last question, but we do have a few more minutes. So if you do have more questions, please feel free to drop them in, and we're getting them here. But yeah, we did have something else to talk about. What were we going to talk about? There was a I've been struggling. I'm going to say it. I've been struggling a little bit in the idea that we've been hearing a lot about religion. We've been hearing a lot about the New Testament, and we've been hearing a lot of these things about the Christian right and what all this means and the tragedy that they went through. And I can't help but think just how opposite Donald Trump is to all the teachings in the Bible. The fact that he would go on stage and say that that he doesn't wish well on his enemies, that he represents exactly the opposite of everything Jesus stood for, everything that we hear in religious school. And it's something that I will never understand, how such a large population in this country would hitch their wagon to this guy who is a serial adulterer, who basically violated every single one of the 10 commandments in his own way.
And he's selling Bibles for profit.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much.
Right? He's selling Bibles for profit. I mean, if he really cared about Jesus and his savior, wouldn't he be giving them out? He has so much money. I don't think he needs any more. I think he would be able to give them to his followers and all practice together.
Absolutely. And that particular night, we watched, and I do want to say that I found Erica Kirk's comment about forgiving the killer was very powerful. It was moving. It was a testament to her faith. I agree with Aaron Rupar, who said that on a human level, my heart goes out to her and I feel for her. And we don't have to agree on every policy in this country. We could still be human. And I think that that's most of the time sets our side apart, is that we do feel empathy and we feel sympathy. And I think it's okay for us to feel empathy and feel sympathy when something.
I can't imagine what she's going through right now. And she really put on a brave front, and she forgave the person who assassinated her husband, and that takes a lot.
Yes, but I would be remiss if I didn't call out Stephen Miller's speech, which was the exact opposite of that, who called basically half the country enemies and stirred up the passions of division. And what we're talking about is not the way that I don't think anybody wants our country to go that way. And he's screaming at the top of his lungs, and he sounds awful like the speeches of the past. And I think you know what I'm talking about. And they don't like being called that and told that they sound like that. But it's like, dude, don't sound like that then, you know?
He's so
I will
angry.
call you guys fascist, then stop doing fascistic things and being authoritarian.
Yeah.
And trying to control speech and screaming about your enemies in ways that echo speeches of the past that we would hope would be on the dustbin of history and that none of us need to hear. So yeah, I didn't particularly find his speech to be a beautiful message amongst the beautiful messages, but I think that it's just another example of, like, I do think that I think Democrats have fatigue of being the better person after all these years. It's been almost a decade, right, since Donald Trump went down that escalator, and we're the bigger people more often than not. I'm very proud of our side. I'm proud of how many leaders and big influencers and people showed grace at this awful tragedy. And I unfortunately, there's the actions of very few were blown up, and that got the news. But from what I saw, every big Democratic influencer showed grace, and there was not one Democratic member of Congress who didn't at least wish well and deliver a beautiful message, during that time, and that's just a testament. But it doesn't mean that there's not more that we could all do as a country. But it all goes back to what I said earlier, where it's like, then get back to policy and stop hurting people, stop hurting marginalized people, stop making your platform, oh, 17 million people are going to lose their health care, one third of children are on Medicaid. There are going to be millions of children now stripped from their Medicaid if this budget bill, the CRT, passes eventually to avoid this government shutdown. People are going to die. So it's like, this is not policy. This is like life or death questions. This is destroying people's lives or not, bulldozing homeless encampments in cities. And literally, I've seen, I mean, I've literally seen footage of homeless people encampments, their tents with their belongings, their bags, their life
No, but we've seen that in
saved
person
items.
too.
Absolutely.
We've seen it in person
Being
too. Being ripped off.
thrown in a garbage truck, getting pulverized, all while the person screaming. We are better than this. We are better than this.
And and it's so unfortunate that, all their belongings are being taken away, but there was no plan to accommodate them. Like as all this was unrolling, all the homeless shelters in Washington, as you know, were full, and everything happened so fast that they weren't able to accommodate everybody because they weren't given notice, because that's how Donald Trump and this administration functions, right? They have an idea, they execute it, but there's no plan. So all their belongings were taken, everything was gone, and they have nowhere to go. Where are you going to put them? How are you going to accommodate them? So then they start wandering the streets of DC, and then police and Capitol Police are telling them there's nowhere for you to go, and they get arrested.
Yeah, we've seen.
And then what happens? And it's a cycle. And then they come out, and then there's nowhere for them to go, and then they don't have their belongings. So, if that's the plan, like have plan B. Like what are they to do once they come out?
There's never a plan.
There's never a plan with this administration.
And Caroline Leavitt said they're going to homeless shelters. That's not how shelters work. Shelters are short term. So they're basically just destroying
during that time too. So I mean, she doesn't know. She doesn't know.
So yeah, it's pretty awful. But before we leave, I did want to tease something that's coming. I got to interview Randy Weingarten, who is the president of the AFT. I'm a huge fan of hers. She wrote this book. The timing of this book is like serendipitous, and it's called Why Fascists Fear Teachers. And I've known her for many years. I picked up the book because I love her so much, and I started reading this thing, and it covers literally everything. And you would be shocked to know how many issues are intersected with education and what the Republicans are trying to do to keep a thumb on the curriculum in these states and the removing of books. And this goes into all of that. So I love this so much that I personally, out of my pocket, bought 20 of these books, and I'm going to hand them out. I'm going to give them out to audience members because I love it so much. I think we should all read it. So keep watching Call to Activism. I'm going to show you clips of the interview, and then underneath, I'm going to make it clear about how you could get a copy of this because I love it. And I'm going to give these out for free as much as I can because I love it so much. So I did want to mention that. I also want to say thank you so much for joining us because this is an opportunity for us to go off the record. There's only so much you could say in a meme. There's only so much you could say in a tweet. And I feel like having this opportunity to just speak in long form is really, really comforting to us also because there's so many issues and there's so much nuance and there's so much to say.
And we really love hearing from everybody too. We love the feedback. We love the questions that come in. And this is just a really nice opportunity for us to have a dialogue with everybody who follows us. So please keep it up.
Yes. And so Cosima is in charge right now of Facebook operations. If you're on Facebook and you see those breaking news memes, that is her genius. I usually handle Twitter. We're doing a big push right now on Instagram. So if you're watching and you don't follow us already, please do because that's going to be a really pivotal part of our operation because there's a lot of younger people on Instagram. And I think that's something that the Democrats can work on is sort of having a way to communicate to all ages. And that's something I'm really passionate about. And when you look at our pie chart and how hard we're working on growing to reach different areas, I'm really proud of the fact that we cover such a wide range of ages and demographics and people. And that's how we win elections, because we just, I'm a lawyer. I quit my job and I started cult activism. Thank you to the the beautiful Cosima who pushed me to do it. Because we saw Donald Trump come down that escalator, and I could not live with myself if we didn't do something. And we took to Facebook, and a little tiny page started with a few hundred followers, and it grew to thousands. And before we knew it, had 1 million followers on Facebook. And we took our message to Twitter. It's people like you who made it possible. We love each and every one of you. I thank you for inviting us on your algorithms. Thank you.
And we really, really appreciate the open dialogue. We push for open communication. We really believe that if we can have an open dialogue with both sides and go over policies and issues and communicate clearly, I think we can actually get somewhere and find some common ground. So thank you to everybody who is contributing to that.
Yes. So thank you again. We'll be back next Monday. I hope you have a great week, and we'll see you very soon. Bye, everybody.